After the Nintendo GameCube was, well, not an utter sales disaster of Wii U scale, but not exactly a big seller either, Nintendo needed a big hit, which thankfully in 2006 came in the form of the Nintendo Wii, a motion-controlled system that was all about how you played as opposed to how pretty the games could look, as the system was only about 1.5 times the power of the GameCube. The benefits of this though were development costs stayed low, and all the experience gained from the last generation carried forward beautifully. This meant even before launch, many big games were announced, and one of them was Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. The final part of the Prime Trilogy envisioned intuitive new pointer controls and showcased a promising future for the series. And with Nintendo making it part of the reveal of the Wii, it proved they were confident in it as well. Their confidence was thankfully well placed, as Prime 3 is easily one of the best titles on the system. But sadly, it was also the last mainline 3D Metroid Prime for another 18 years. This is Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Pixel Tavern. The third and final of the original Metroid Prime Trilogy is where the franchise really clicked for me. It was the first Prime that I completed, and from beginning to end, never using a guide. It holds a special place in the series for me by helping me to finally connect with this amazing franchise. It's also still one of my favourite Wii games ever. Before we dive in, please subscribe to the Pixel Tavern for more videos like this one, covering more Metroid, the Zelda series, and more to come. For now though, as usual with these videos, there are full spoilers ahead. First released for the Nintendo Wii on 27th of August 2007, and then again in the Prime Trilogy for Wii almost exactly 2 years later on 24th of August 2009. This was my gateway Metroid game. Up until Prime 3, I had a passing interest in the series. I played a tiny bit of Prime 1 and Zero Mission, a good half or more of Prime 2, and I'd completed Fusion. I enjoyed what I'd played, but had never been fully invested in the series. I don't know why it took me so long to get into either. In comparison, the Zelda series may have taken me a while to get stuck into Wind Waker, my first Zelda game, but once I did, I was hooked on the entire series. And Metroid is a lot like the Zelda series in many ways, so it should have been an easy thing for me to enjoy. For me though, that spark for Metroid didn't ignite fully until about here. Yeah, I feel fighting a cybernetic dragon as you fall down a huge tunnel towards your death will sell me on most franchises if I'm completely honest with myself. This is the fight that kickstarted my love for the franchise. Meta Ridley. Being one of the earliest boss fights, he's not really that difficult, but the cinematic drama and set-piece-like nature of it is insanely memorable for me, and set such a great tone early on for the whole story. You fight him while falling down a long thin tunnel as he scrapes against the sides with his claws and takes swipes at Samus to grab or attack her. It immediately reminded me of the Gandalf vs Balrog scene in The Lord of the Rings, falling into a void while fighting a seemingly unstoppable enemy. Whenever I think of Metroid, this is the first scene that comes to mind. Ridley has several fights throughout the Metroid series, and this is probably the easiest one. You even fight Ridley again later on in this in a more difficult battle. But for me, it's this first encounter with him that I'll never forget. I think what also got me excited for Prime 3, so much so that I even bought it day one, is the hype cycle to its release. This was one of the first titles revealed for the Wii, and showcased the perfectly suited pointer controls for its first-person perspective. You could just point and shoot. The motion controls were so intuitive for this kind of gameplay, and the simple idea that you could aim independently of where you were looking was such a cool feature. It's honestly something I miss from first-person shooters in the Wii days. Metroid Prime Remastered and Prime 4 replicate this with the Switch's Joy-Con gyro controls, and even with a standard Pro controller, if you have the option turned on. But it's never felt quite as smooth or intuitive as Prime 3 on Wii. For the playthrough for this video, as with Prime 2, I used the Prime Hacks version of the Dolphin emulator. I sadly couldn't get my Wii Remote and Nunchuck to connect though, so I once again used mouse and keyboard, which thankfully worked beautifully, at least for a majority of the experience.
I also tested out a Pro controller, which gave me a lot of confidence in how easily Prime 3 could be remastered for Switch, as it played almost as smoothly as Prime Remastered or Prime 4. Except for a couple of areas though. Interactions with levers and screens, and the grapple hook mechanic just weren't as fun. They still work, and considering the circumstance of lack of motion controls, the emulator developers did the best possible. But I remember the Wii version being surprisingly fun to interact with different levers and screens. By using motion controls, you could twist and turn the remote to match the movement of Samus. Sadly, that isn't replicated via controller or mouse and keyboard, and instead levers are automatic and the grapple hook is just a button press. It is a minor thing to miss out on though, if it makes Prime 3 more accessible. Speaking of accessible, this is one of the easiest Metroid games to get into thanks to excellent pacing, simplified and more linear map design, and a faster hint system than Prime 1 or 2. Pacing wise, it hits the ground running pretty quickly. At first you are guided through a Galactic Federation 4 ship with minor tutorials on how to aim using the Wii Remote, and some other basics. Soon though, you meet other bounty hunters, and the story begins. Continuing on from the end of Metroid Prime 2, where Dark Samus survived the destruction of Aether, Samus worked with her fellow bounty hunters to defend the Olympus ship from space pirate attack. They then head to the planet Norion to defend the Federation base from space pirates, who are now working with Dark Samus after she killed half of their forces and took control of the rest, including Ridley. After successfully defending the base, Samus and the other bounty hunters enable the planet's air defense systems. But just as they do, Dark Samus attacks and infects all of them with Phazon, and brings everyone except Samus under her control. Samus is saved due to her suit fighting off the infection long enough for the Federation to give her a PED Phazon enhancement device, which is an upgrade for her suit that will hold back the Phazon infection just a little bit, and also allows her to harness its power temporarily. But best of all, it doesn't take away all of her powers. Unlike other Metroids, there is simply no explanation as to why she doesn't have all of her powers from Prime 2, which honestly, I prefer. We don't need an answer in every game. From here, Samus travels to multiple planets to stop Leviathan seeds. These are meteorites that Dark Samus sends out to infect and take over planets with Phazon. Along the way, Samus fights and kills the space pirates, and all the other bounty hunters who are now controlled by Dark Samus, all while being slowly turned into another dark version of Samus herself due to the corruption slowly infecting her more. Something you can actually see happen if you get a game over. At the end, Samus is able to find a wormhole to the planet Phase, the source of all Phazon. Here she defeats Dark Samus and destroys the source of Phazon, destroying it across the galaxy as well. Presumably, this is when Dark Samus is actually destroyed. As with Prime 1 and 2, there is a lot more story to be discovered via scan logs, but it's a lot to cover in this video. So once again, if you want to know more, go check out Zeltroid's YouTube channel for a video on the complete story of the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Personally, I found the story of Prime 3 and its production values to be the best of the original trilogy. It has a lot more depth to it than the first two, where their stories were more of a device to progress the gameplay. Here instead, it feels like a true ending to a trilogy. Samus is working towards a clear goal of stopping Dark Samus from spreading Phazon across the galaxy, and you see her struggle to survive due to her Phazon corruption. Although it's fairly subtle, it also comes across that Samus is reluctant to kill the other bounty hunters, and there is a strong sense of dread throughout the entire story. Compared to the first two Prime games, where the story is very much in the background, with Prime 3 it feels a much bigger focus, and having more characters and even voice acting definitely adds to that. Overall, I feel it's a strong end to the trilogy. It's not to the high levels of, say, the Halo franchise in terms of story, but Metroid Prime was never trying to tell a big story. It was always primarily focused on gameplay. The story it does tell is still enjoyable though, and well told. As for gameplay, I feel Prime 3 did a hell of a lot right to evolve itself in the way Prime 2 didn't from the original. It breaks some Metroid conventions, such as making the map layout more linear, most likely to appeal to the Wii's more casual audience, many of which this would probably have been their first Metroid game. I feel this was overall a good choice. I do wonder if I would have even played Metroid Prime 1 and 2 again if it weren't for how accessible 3 was. It is ultimately a lot easier than its predecessors, not only due to its easier navigation, thanks to always having map markers, but also because of its easier puzzles and combat. Admittedly though, this is less appealing on replaying it. It worked great for me the first time I played, as it allowed me to really enjoy the gameplay and get me into the rest of the franchise. But playing it this time around, I did notice a large drop in overall difficulty from other Prime games, and increasing it to hard mode doesn't really fix that, as it has no effect on puzzles. It does affect combat quite heavily, reducing Samus's damage output and increasing the enemies, while also increasing their aggression levels. However, I don't feel that would be the difficulty increase I would want. Whereas Prime 1, 2, and all other Metroids made exploring for health and ammo upgrades more of a puzzle experience, in Prime 3, many upgrades are laid out right in front of you, or require very minor puzzles to obtain them. This makes them much less rewarding to find, and since enemies do so little damage to you, at least on the normal difficulty, the upgrades hardly feel worth looking for anyway. In my opinion, it doesn't ruin the gameplay in any way. It just makes it more accessible, but this can put some players off who want more of a challenge. I'm still grateful that it was easier though, as this was where my love for Metroid first began, and is likely where it did for many other players as well. Although it's easier, I do find its gameplay variation is fantastic though. It's definitely the most cinematic of the original Prime Trilogy, with a lot more action and drama than its predecessors. Even simple things like making how you interact with the world more intuitive and tactile adds a lot to the experience. Even without the intended Wii Remote and Nunchuck setup, these interactions go a long way to making it stand out from its predecessors, and in many ways making it feel more realistic. There is also the hyper mode mechanic, which if Samus's corruption level from Phazon gets too high, she must release it as quickly as possible, resulting in a high-powered arm cannon mode that's fun to use and ties into the story nicely. The variation in locations across the story is great as well. Thanks to the extra power of the Wii, these planets are much more intricate in their visual design and terrain. My favourite is Skytown Elysia, a steampunk-esque ancient planet of floating structures all connected by a rail system that's always fun and frenetic to use. Samus hooks onto them and is pulled at high speeds through the sky to reach the other side. Along the way you have to defend and open stuck doorways to survive. It's also such an interesting place because it has such a deep history and because of the secret experiments going on here. Ranging from Skytown to Baros's fire and ice environments to the acid rains of the space pirate homeworld, each planet is unique and exciting to explore, and showcases some of the best variation the series has to offer. Samus's ship also plays a much bigger role here than any other Metroid, as each biome is on a different planet. You utilize the ship to fly between the planets and different destinations across each one, but you also need to upgrade it multiple times to open up new areas and complete objectives, such as allowing it to pick up objects or fire missiles. It doesn't add a whole lot in terms of gameplay, and it was disappointing to not see it used more, but thematically, it works great. It's also very detailed, with multiple interactable elements that make it look like you will fly it into battle, but sadly, you never do. All of the interactive parts are completely for show, bar a cutscene or two requiring them. I imagine more gameplay was planned, but scrapped during development, and they left in the interactive parts because they either thought it would be fun, it was too late to remove them, or the developers just felt like teasing us. One area Prime 3 really excels though, is in its boss fights. You fight all of the corrupted bounty hunters, Gore, Rundus and Gandrea, each with unique powers and personalities. Gandrea is particularly good with her cocky and playful attitude matching well with her shape-shifting powers. Her boss fight consists of her turning into other enemies on the fly to keep things varied. Rundus, although less of a personality, is essentially like fighting Iceman from the X-Men in a fast-paced and fun battle. And Gore's is a heavyweight fight against his mech in a test of power. In the final battles, you face off against Dark Samus in her best design for the series, and then destroy all Phazon by defeating a corrupted Galactic Federation Aurora unit, essentially an AI in a cinematic and tough battle. In fact, Prime 3 has several cinematic elements to it, such as Samus's suit getting more Phazon colors as she becomes more corrupted, which brings an overall sense of dread throughout the whole story. Overall, there's also a lot more cutscenes than Prime 1 or 2 as well, another reason the story is a much bigger focus than before. That cinematic feel isn't just in the cutscenes though. There's many set pieces such as Ridley attacking you in morph ball tunnels, action-heavy moments where you have to fight alongside the Galactic Federation troopers, or one of my favorite parts where you come across a building full of Metroid experiments. As you work your way through it, you are always on edge as you are waiting for the inevitable moment that they will break loose. Even minor elements such as using the grapple beam to rip doors open, using Samus's ship to travel across and around planets, or using the Skytown rail system to zip across the sky add a lot of flair to the whole experience. As usual, that experience is held up by all of Samus's abilities, and unfortunately, there isn't really much new here, bar the grapple beam being used in a new way. Otherwise, it's basically the same as the prior two games. However, Prime 3 doesn't waste any of its upgrades. I feel every ability got used to its maximum, and although the puzzles around them are easier than before, they are fun and engaging. And thanks to the lower amount of backtracking, they never get dull either. Finally, there is the presentation. And Retro absolutely nailed it here. This is easily the best looking of the original trilogy, not including remastered, of course. This is partially down to the extra power of the Wii, but the subtle changes in lighting and overall production values of it make it stand out even more. The bigger focus on cutscenes and set pieces really make it feel like a big leap up from the first two. And the multiple planets and side characters make the world of Metroid feel more expansive and alive than ever before. With the Prime Hacks version, you get a higher resolution, but the original still looks fantastic, if a bit blurry by today's standards. I would love to see a remaster of this, and let Prime 3's world look even better. As for music, it's as good as Prime 1 and 2, and it's once again down to the talented composer Kenji Yamamoto. Although this time he also worked alongside two other composers, Minako Hamano and Masaru Tajima, to create a dark and layered soundtrack. My favourite is once again the title screen that creates a foreboding and sinister feel before even pressing the plus button. Throughout the roughly 15-hour story, you will hear once again one of the most unique soundtracks in video games, that while being similar to Prime 1 and 2, still stands out from them as well. Overall, Metroid Prime 3 is not only one of the best games on Wii, it's one of the best games available. It's not quite as good as Prime 1 from a gameplay standpoint, but its cinematic flair, production values and story make it stand out as a highlight amongst all Metroid games. For me, it has the most exciting bosses in the Prime series, even if they and everything else are the easiest in the series as well. And it has great environment and level design too. Its difficulty may be a bit too low for me now, but I'm very grateful that Retro decided to make this a bit easier than the prior two games. As if they didn't, I may never have been properly introduced to one of the best franchises available, and I really hope that it gets the remaster it deserves. With the original trilogy over, Retro would go on to make two fantastic Donkey Kong Country games, and seemingly leave the Prime franchise behind, only to be brought back years later to save it from a troubled development in 2019. After 18 years of waiting, Retro finally brought the series back in 2025 with the long-awaited fourth installment. Next time I jump into the franchise's return with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Phil, and I'm the creator of the Pixel Tavern. Metroid Prime 3 is such a fantastic experience that I hope gets a second chance to shine with a remaster to look as good as its sequel. If you aren't already, please subscribe to the Pixel Tavern and click the bell icon to be informed of when the next video is out. Please also leave a comment with your thoughts on Prime 3. Was it your first Prime game like me? What did you think of the motion controls? And how would you want to see Samus's ship better utilised in future games? Until next time though, there is more videos on screen now, but otherwise I hope you keep well, and thank you very much for watching.